This copper basin can duplicate items indefinitely. A man accidentally drops a water bottle into a copper basin. The next second, 100 identical bottles appear in the basin. Shocked, the man figures the basin must have magical powers to duplicate anything. He spends all his savings on a gold bar. When he places it in the basin and makes a wish, many gold bars appear. But then he notices something strange. All the gold bars had the exact same number carved on them. He almost panicked. If anyone saw that, they would know something was wrong. But Lee Jun-ho was not an ordinary man. He was a regressor. He had already lived through one life before, 30 long years of failure, betrayal, and pain. Now, after waking up in his younger body, he had two things he didn't have before: his memories of the future and this strange copper basin. In his last life, he died during the great cold wave that froze half the country. He still remembered how people begged for food, how neighbors fought each other for scraps, how entire families froze to death in their homes. This time, he would not die. This time, he would be ready. That night, he melted the gold bars into rough lumps, so nobody could see the repeating numbers. The eye. Next morning, he sold them to a jewelry shop. The shopkeeper tested them, then finally nodded. Pure gold. Money stacked high in his hands. Just like that, Jun-ho became rich. But he didn't waste money on cars, houses, or parties. He rushed to the market and bought food, water, warm clothes, medicine, heaters, and fuel. Day after day, he carried them back to his small apartment. Neighbors whispered, confused at how the poor factory worker suddenly had more supplies than anyone else. Late at night, he tried putting the items into the basin. That's when he discovered an even greater secret. The basin wasn't just copying, it was also storing. No matter how much he put in, the inside never filled up. It was like a bottomless hole, a world that could hold everything. He used it again and again. One blanket turned into a mountain of blankets. One box of ramen became a tower of noodles. He kept stacking until the entire building could have been fed for months, and then the cold wave finally arrived. Snow slammed against the city. The streets turned white in minutes. People collapsed outside, their bodies freezing solid where they stood. Cars stopped running. Power grid died, one block at a time. Inside, Jun-ho sat safe. His heater hummed. Hot steam rose from his bowl of noodles. He had mountains of food and water, enough to survive for years, but the world outside was collapsing. Neighbors screamed and pounded on doors. A burly man tried to smash through Jun-ho's window, but failed. A woman cried at his door, begging for bread. Jun-ho clenched his teeth and threw a bag of expired bread into the trash outside. The crowd pounced. Fighting like wild animals, he turned away, but his heart kept pounding. In his last life, he had been one of them. This time, he swore, things would be different. Then, someone knocked on his door. Not desperate, not weak, a slow, steady knock. Yeez. Jun-ho, a calm voice said. I know about the basin. Hand it over. Jun-ho froze. His secret was no longer safe. The knocking continued. Slow. Steady. Not like a beggar. Not like a starving neighbor. Lee Jun-ho, the voice repeated. I know what you're hiding. Open the door. Jun-ho's hands clenched. In his last life, he had trusted the wrong people and lost everything, not this time. He stayed silent. Outside, footsteps shifted. Someone else was breathing in the hall. At least 2 men. Maybe 3. They knew his name. They knew about the basin. Jun-ho's mind raced. He had to act first. He reached into the copper basin and pulled out a small pistol. Not real, but an air gun he had tested before. The basin had given him dozens. Enough to scare anyone. He stood by the door and shouted, Leave now! If you come closer, I'll shoot. For a moment, Silence. Then the calm voice laughed. "Shoot if you want, but you'll run out of food someday, and when you do, you'll come begging to me." The footsteps moved away. The hall went quiet again. Jun-ho didn't relax. He knew what this meant. Someone had already noticed his strange fortune. Someone wanted to take it. The next morning, the storm was worse. People collapsed in the snow like broken dolls. Families screamed for help. The government sent no rescue. The city was turning into an ice graveyard. From his window, Jun-ho saw a group of men dragging doors off their hinges to burn for heat. He saw a mother pressing her baby to her chest, both shaking. He saw a crowd outside the empty mart, smashing glass, tearing shelves bare. In his last life, he had died in this chaos. This time, he would use it. He made his move. He packed small bags from the basin. Each bag had food, water, and warm socks. He dropped them quietly at the stairwell, then disappeared back inside. When the neighbors found them, they fought. But then slowly, order began. One man shouted to share. A woman gave her bread to a crying child. Jun-ho watched from his peephole. He wasn't helping out of kindness. He was testing them. In his last life, he learned one truth. When the world ends, people become monsters. But a few, just a few, become allies. That night, the knocking returned. This time, it wasn't one man. It was many. "Open up, Jun-ho. We know you have food. If you don't share, we'll break in." Voices rose, angry and desperate. Fists slammed the door. The walls shook. Jun-ho stepped back, breathing slowly. In his past life, this was how he died, neighbors turning into enemies. But this time he was ready. He reached into the basin and pulled out what he had prepared, a bag of rough gold lumps, enough to buy soldiers, enough to buy power, because food was only the start. The true game had not even begun. And as the door rattled under the fists of starving men, Jun-ho smiled coldly. He knew exactly how to turn this disaster into the start of his empire. The storm did not stop. By the third day, half the city was dark. People dragged broken furniture into the streets, burning it for heat. Smoke mixed with snow until the air turned gray. Inside his apartment, Jun-ho ate hot rice and kimchi stew. The copper basin kept giving him more, but he knew comfort wouldn't last. The city was breaking apart, and sooner or later, someone stronger would come knocking. That morning, he heard voices in the hallway, not the angry mob from before. Quieter. Careful, he pressed his ear to the door. "It has to be him," a man whispered. "No one else has power. No one else has food." "Then what do we do? If we move wrong, he'll shut us out." Jun-ho smiled faintly. These weren't raiders. They were desperate, but smart. People who might follow if given the chance. He slid a small package through the trash slot. Inside were 2 bottles of water and a packet of ramen. "Eat first," he said through the door. "Then come back tomorrow." Silence. Then muffled thanks. Footsteps faded away. It was a small move, but it was a win. He wasn't just surviving. He was planting seeds. That night, Jun-ho couldn't sleep. Not from fear, but from memory. In his past life. After the cold wave came famine. After famine came riots. After riots came the military, locking down entire districts, and he had died in that chaos, frozen and nameless. But this time he had gold. This time he had supplies. This time he had foresight. He opened his notebook and wrote 3 words: food, power, control. If he wanted to survive longer than anyone else, he needed more than stockpiles. He needed influence. He needed people who would obey him. By the 5th day, his neighbors had nothing left. Men with bloodshot eyes fought over, frozen scraps in the alley. Children cried until their voices broke. That was when Jun-ho stepped outside for the first time. He wore a heavy parka, thick gloves, and a mask to hide his face. On his back was a large duffel bag filled by the basin. Dozens of people turned to stare as he walked into the courtyard. Gasps echoed through the cold air. Food. Real food. He dropped the bag on the ground and unzipped it. Inside were bundles of bread, rice packets, and water. "Line up," he said firmly. "If you want this, there will be rules." Nobody moved at first. Then a child shuffled forward. Then another. Soon, a line formed. The strongest men in the crowd glared, but they didn't dare fight. Not with so many watching, not with Junho standing calm and unshaken. One by one, he handed out rations. Not enough to fill them, just enough to keep them alive. And with every hand that touched his, every whisper of thanks, his power grew. But not everyone was grateful. Later that night, as he carried the basin back inside, he caught a shadow moving near the stairwell. A man leaned against the wall, smoking despite the storm. A scar cut across his cheek. His eyes were sharp, hungry. "You're smart," the man said. "Too smart. But giving food for free? That's weakness. Out here, people only follow fear." Junho said nothing. He recognized this man from his past life. In that life, the scarred man had led a gang that terrorized the block, beating anyone who resisted. He had killed without hesitation. This time, Junho wasn't afraid. This time, he had already prepared. He gripped the basin handle tighter and stared coldly into the man's eyes. Because tomorrow he would decide, would he make this enemy kneel or erase him before the gang could rise? Snowstorms swallowed the city. The streets were silent, but danger was everywhere. Inside the building, whispers spread. People had seen the food. They had seen Junho. By morning, the neighbors gathered in the courtyard. Some begged, some glared, and in the back, the scarred man leaned against the wall, smoke curling from his lips. His name was Daniel Park, and everyone avoided his eyes. Daniel spoke loudly. "Why should one man control all the food? Share it, or we'll take it." Murmurs rose. Hungry eyes turned toward Junho, but Junho didn't flinch. He stepped forward, duffel bag in hand. He unzipped it slowly. Inside were neat packages of bread, water, and blankets. Gasps filled the air. "You want food?" Junho said. "Then line up. I give to those who follow rules. No fighting, no stealing. Break the rule once, and you get nothing." The crowd hesitated, but the cold bit deeper every second. One by one, they stepped into line. Daniel's eyes narrowed. He expected chaos, but Junho had turned it into order. The scarred man lit another cigarette and smirked. "This won't last. Fear always wins." Junho ignored him. He handed out just enough to keep the neighbors alive. Not plenty, just survival. And with every package, their dependence grew. By afternoon, the block was whispering his name with both awe and fear. Not a weak delivery boy. Not a factory dropout, but the man who could feed them. That night, Junho sat with his notebook open. He wrote 3 new words: control through hunger. He remembered the future clearly. In his last life, Daniel Park had built his gang by hoarding food and forcing people to kneel. But this time, Junho had flipped. The script: Daniel wouldn't rise, he would kneel or break. A sharp knock rattled his door. Not desperate this time, confident. "Open up," Daniel's voice growled. "We need to talk. Alone." Junho stared at the door, calm but ready. In his past life, this man had ruled him. Now, he had the chance to decide his fate. Should he turn Daniel into his first soldier, or crush him before the gang could even form? The handle twitched. The door creaked open an inch. Daniel stepped inside without asking. The room was warm, too warm compared to the hall. His sharp eyes scanned the stacks of boxes, the bags, the glow of the small heater. He smirked. "I knew it. You're sitting on a mountain." Junho didn't. Answer. He closed the door behind Daniel and locked it. Two men now stood in a fortress filled with food. Daniel flicked his cigarette into a cup and leaned forward. You have what everyone wants, but you can't protect it alone. When word spreads, the whole block will come for you. Cops, gangs, maybe even soldiers. But me? I can keep them in line. You feed me, I control them. That's the deal. It was the same speech Daniel had given in the past life. Back then, Jun-ho had been weak and desperate. He had agreed, and Daniel had used him until nothing was left. But not this time. Jun-ho walked to the copper basin and reached in. He pulled out a pistol, black, heavy, and very real-looking. Daniel's smirk vanished. You think I need you? Jun-ho said quietly, I already control them. You saw it yourself. They lined up for me. For the first time, Daniel hesitated. The fearless thug from the future blinked, caught off guard. Jun-ho placed a small bag on the table. Inside was bread, water, and a blanket. Take it, he said. Eat, sleep warm. But remember this, your life now depends on me, not the other way around. Daniel's fists clenched. His pride screamed to lash out. But hunger was louder. He grabbed the bag and shoved it under his arm. Before leaving, he paused at the door. His voice was low, almost a growl. You've made me bow today, but don't think this ends here. The door slammed. Jun-ho exhaled slowly, lowering the pistol. His first enemy had bent, but not broken. And outside, the storm raged harder, burying the city deeper in ice. The world was getting colder, but the real fire of war had only just begun. The sixth day of the storm was worse than all the rest. Buses lay frozen in the streets. Phones stopped working. The news said rescue teams would come, but no one believed it anymore. Inside the apartment block, whispers grew louder. Some called Jun-ho a savior. Others called him a hoarder, and Daniel Park's glare never left him, even when he wasn't near. That night, heavy boots echoed in the stairwell. Not neighbors, not beggars, too steady, too organized. Men in black coats pushed their way into the building. They carried batons, radios, and pistols on their belts. They weren't police, but they acted like it. One of them shouted, "We're taking charge of this block. Anyone with food will hand it over for distribution." Gasps filled the hallway. Hungry families stepped back in fear. Everyone looked at Jun-ho's door. The leader of the group, tall and clean-shaven, spoke again. I heard someone here has supplies. A lot of supplies. Don't make us drag you out. The crowd parted as his men stomped forward. Daniel Park watched from the corner, a cruel smile on his face. For him, this was perfect. If Jun-ho fell, Daniel could rise. But Jun-ho stayed calm. He had lived this scene before. In his past life, gangs like this had taken everything from people. This time, he would not bow. He reached into the basin. His hand came back with a black duffel bag stuffed full. He set it gently on the floor. The room filled with the smell of food. The leader's eyes narrowed. Smart. You know how this works. Now give us all of it. Jun-ho smiled faintly. Who said this was for you? He unzipped the bag. Inside was bread, water, and medicine, but also neat rolls of pure gold lumps, shining even in the dim light. The leader froze. So did his men. Jun-ho's voice cut through the silence. Tell your boss this block is mine. If he wants to talk, he talks to me. And I pay in ways no one else can. The leader's face twitched, half tempted, half threatened. He zipped the bag shut and lifted it with both hands. Fine, he muttered. We'll be back. The gang left, but the building didn't relax. If anything, the fear grew worse. Daniel Park smirked as the door closed. You just painted a target on your back. Jun-ho looked at the copper basin, eyes cold. He already knew. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about control. and soon the whole city would hear his name. The storm eased for a moment. Snow still covered the streets, but the wind finally grew quiet. Families crawled out from under blankets, shivering but alive. Children cried from hunger. Old men coughed in the dark. Inside the building, whispers spread about the men in black coats. Everyone knew they would come back, and when they did, there would be no mercy. Junho stepped into the courtyard. Dozens of neighbors turned, eyes wide. He carried another duffel bag, but this time he didn't just hand food out. "Listen carefully," he said. "I'll keep you alive. But in return, you follow my rules. We guard this building together. We don't let outsiders take it." The crowd murmured. Some nodded quickly. Others glanced at Daniel Park, waiting for him to speak. Daniel smirked but stayed silent. For now, he was watching. Testing. Junho opened the bag. Inside were care kits, bread, water, and warm socks. He handed the first to a woman with a child. She bowed deeply, tears running down her face. Soon a line formed. People whispered thank you as they received their share. For the first time since the storm began, hope flickered in their eyes. But Junho wasn't being kind. Every kit had a red mark drawn on the bag. A silent signal. These people owe me now. That night, 3 neighbors came to his door. A middle-aged man, a quiet high school boy, and a nurse, who lived on the 3rd floor. "We want to help," the man said. "You saved our families. Let us protect yours." Junho studied their faces. In his past life, these 3 had died early in the chaos. But maybe this time, they could live. And fight for him, he gave them blankets and hot soup. "From now on," he said, "you're with me. If the gang comes back, we don't run. We stand." They nodded firmly, eyes burning with new purpose. Later, as the building slept, Daniel Park knocked softly at his door. Not with fists, not with threats. Just a quiet knock. When Junho opened, Daniel leaned against the wall, smirking. "You're building soldiers," he said. "Interesting. But don't forget, when the gang returns, they won't be fooled by gold twice. They'll bring real guns next time." Junho's gaze didn't waver. "I know. That's why I'll be ready before they arrive." Daniel chuckled, flicking ash from his cigarette. "You're either a genius or you're insane." The storm outside howled again, rattling the windows. And in that sound, both men knew the real war for the block had only just begun. On the 8th night, the building didn't sleep. Mothers rocked their children. Men stood at windows, staring at the empty street. Everyone knew the gang would return. Junho sat with his 3 new allies around a small lantern. The middle-aged man, Mr. Han, gripped a wooden bat. The high school boy, Chris, clutched a kitchen knife. The nurse, Emily, wrapped bandages around her hands like gloves. They were scared, but they were ready. Daniel Park leaned in the corner, smoking again. "You really think this ragtag group can stop them?" he sneered. Junho didn't answer. He only smiled faintly, because in his past life, he had seen how these gangs operated. He knew exactly how they thought, how they fought, and how they broke. At midnight, headlights pierced the snow. A black van rolled to a stop outside the building. Doors slammed. Men in black coats stepped out, this time carrying bats, chains, and pistols tucked at their sides. The leader from before shouted up at the windows, "Bring out the food, or we'll burn this." "Place to the ground!" People inside whimpered. Some looked ready to throw Junho to the wolves, but then he stepped into the courtyard, calm, unshaken. The gang laughed at the sight of one man walking into the snow. "What's this?" one jeered. "Trying to play hero?" Junho raised his hand. From the shadows of the building, Mr. Han, Chris, and Emily stepped out. Behind them, more neighbors appeared, 10, then 20, each gripping whatever weapon they had, bats, pipes, even broom handles. The gang's laughter faded. Junho's voice cut through the night. "You think we're weak? You think we'll bow? This is our block. Try to take it and you won't leave." For a moment, silence. Then the leader barked a laugh and waved his men forward. "Break them!" The first clash was brutal. Chains swung, glass shattered. Neighbors screamed as fists and bats collided in the snow. Chris, the high school boy, slashed at a thug's arm, drawing blood. Emily smashed a pipe into another's knee. Mr. Hans swung his bat like a man possessed, knocking two down at once. Junho moved like a man who had fought this fight before, because he had. In his last life, he had died here. Now he ducked, countered, and struck with precision, never wasting a move. The basin had already armed him with duplicates of weapons hidden in the snow. Every time a thug fell, another neighbor picked one up. The gang began to falter. Their leader's smile twisted into rage. "Shoot them," he roared. A pistol was drawn. The neighbors froze in fear. But before the shot fired, Daniel Park stepped forward. He slammed the thug's arm against the wall, knocking the gun into the snow, his scarred face twisted into a grin. "Not so easy, is it?" For the first time, Daniel fought on Junho's side. By the time the fight ended, the gang had fled back to their van, dragging their wounded with them. The courtyard was littered with blood, broken wood, and heavy breaths. The neighbors looked at Junho. No one dared speak first, until finally someone whispered the words out loud. "He saved us!" One by one, heads bowed. Even Daniel stayed quiet, cigarette burning between his fingers. Junho stood in the center of the snow, chest rising and falling slowly. This time, he had survived the fight that once killed him. And for the first time, he wasn't just surviving. He was leading. Morning came with silence. The courtyard was still stained with blood. Broken bats and shattered pipes lay half buried in the snow. But the building still stood, and the neighbors were still alive. Inside, people whispered Junho's name. Children clung to his sleeve when he passed. Mothers bowed their heads in thanks. Even the old men who once mocked him looked at him with respect. But Junho didn't relax. He knew what came next. The gang would not forget their humiliation. They would come back with more men, more weapons, and more rage. Daniel Park sat at the window, smoking as usual. "You played it well," he said. "They see you as a hero now. But when the gang returns, you'll need more than neighbors with broomsticks." Junho's gaze didn't waver. "I already know. That's why you're still alive." Daniel's smirk faded. "Are you saying you need me?" "I'm saying," Junho replied, "you can either kneel beside me now or kneel later when I crush you." For the first time, Daniel had no comeback. He stared at Junho's calm face, and deep down, he felt it. The man in front of him was no ordinary survivor. By evening, scouts returned with news. A group of strangers had been spotted, 2 blocks away. Not beggars, not neighbors. Men in clean coats carrying rifles and radios. "They're asking about supplies," the scout whispered nervously. "They already heard what happened here." The room fell into silence. The neighbors shifted in fear. First the gang, now outsiders with real weapons. How long could they hold out? But Junho sat quietly, tapping his notebook. He remembered this moment from his past life. When the gangs failed, the city's broken power shifted to another hand. Rich men and their private soldiers swooping in to seize control. And he knew exactly who these strangers belonged to, a powerful Chaebol family, the same one that had risen from the disaster and controlled the city in his last life. Back then they had ruled with greed and blood, but this time Junho would face them head-on. The next day, the rifles appeared at his gates. A man in a sharp coat stepped forward, boots crunching in the snow. He smiled politely, as if this wasn't the end of the world. "I'm David Kang," he said calmly. "I represent the Kang Group. We'll be taking over this district now." Behind him, soldiers lifted their rifles in unison. The neighbors gasped and backed away. But Junho didn't flinch. He stepped into the snow, face cold as ice. Because he had seen the Kang groups rise before, and he knew exactly where to strike them. The rifles glinted under the gray sky. David Kang's polite smile never wavered. "This block is under our protection now," he said. "Hand over your food and supplies and we'll let you stay warm." Gasps rippled through the neighbors. Protection? It was nothing but robbery with manners. Daniel Park spat in the snow. Rich scum, always the same. But even he stepped back when the rifles pointed higher. Everyone's eyes went to Jun-ho. He stood calm, hands empty. Inside, his heart beat steady. He had already seen this play in his last life. The Kang group came as saviors, then enslaved the starving. Families gave up everything for a few bowls of rice. This time he would flip the script. Jun-ho stepped forward. "You think you're the only ones with power." He reached into the copper basin and pulled out a black duffel bag. He dropped it in the snow. The zipper split open. Gold spilled across the white ground, glowing even under the storm clouds. The rifles wavered. Soldiers' eyes widened. Even David. Kang blinked, his polite mask cracking. "There's more where that came from," Jun-ho said evenly. "You want this city? You'll need me, because no one else can give you what I can." For a moment, silence ruled the courtyard. Then David Kang laughed softly. "You're bold. I'll admit. I like that. But gold can't feed soldiers. Gold can't keep them warm." Jun-ho's faint smile never moved. "Then you don't understand. Yet." He turned and gestured toward the building. The neighbors stepped out, each holding food packets, water bottles, and warm blankets, all identical, all from the basin. David Kang's eyes narrowed. He saw it now. This wasn't luck. This was something else, something dangerous. The standoff tightened. Soldiers gripped their rifles, waiting for a signal. Neighbors clutched their food, eyes darting. Daniel Park shifted beside Jun-ho, ready for a fight. Finally, David Kang raised a hand. The rifles lowered. His smile returned, sharper this time. "Interesting. Very interesting. Then let's not waste time. Come with me. The Kang family would like to speak with you directly." The neighbors gasped. Daniel hissed through his teeth. It was a trap. Everyone knew it. But Jun-ho only adjusted his gloves and stepped forward. He had lived this before. He knew exactly how dangerous the Kang family was, and this time he wouldn't crawl in as prey. He would walk in as the one holding the knife.
The black SUV cut through the frozen streets. Inside, Jun-ho sat between two Kang soldiers. Their rifles rested across their laps, but their eyes kept flicking toward him, like they were curious but also uneasy. David Kang sat in the front, watching the road. "You should be honored," he said. "Most men beg for a chance to meet my uncle. But you? You forced us to notice you." Jun-ho didn't reply. He gazed at the storm outside, lips pressed in a thin line. In his past life, this was how it began. The Kang group gathered survivors, turned them into pawns, and built an empire on fear. This time, he would not be their pawn. The SUV pulled up to a tall glass tower in the center of Busan. Somehow, even in the storm, the building still glowed with light. Generators hummed. Guards in black coats lined the lobby. Inside, warmth hit like a wave. Crystal chandeliers glittered above starving faces. Refugees huddled in corners, trading scraps of food for safety. The Kang family had already turned survival into business. They led Jun-ho up to the top floor. The door opened to a lavish office. Behind the desk sat Chairman Edward Kang, silver hair, sharp suit, and eyes like a predator. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "So, you're the boy with endless supplies." Jun-ho bowed politely, but only slightly. The chairman's smile widened. "You've caused quite a stir. Gold, food, blankets. My men tell me it's as if you can pull riches out of thin air." His voice dropped lower. "Tell me, boy, where do they come from?" Every guard in the room watched him. One wrong word, and they would shoot. But Jun-ho's voice was steady. "They come from me, and if you want them, you'll have to deal with me." The room went silent. The chairman leaned back slowly, studying him. "You've got guts," he said. "Very well. You'll work for the Kang family now. You give us everything you produce, and in return, we let you live." Junho's lips curved into the faintest smile. He had been waiting for those exact words, because in his past life, countless others had agreed and lost everything. This time, he would play the Kang family's game, but only to tear them apart from the inside. That night, as he was escorted back to the SUV, David Kang leaned close. "You think you impressed him? You're just a tool now. Tools get thrown away." Junho's eyes stayed cold. "Maybe, or maybe I'm the one holding the blade, and your family doesn't realize it yet." The storm howled outside the glass walls, and somewhere deep in his chest, Junho felt it. His second life wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about rewriting the fate of the entire city. The SUV's engine died with a shudder outside Junho's building. Cold air rushed in as the door opened, biting through layers of fabric like it had teeth. Junho stepped out into ankle-deep snow, his breath forming clouds that dissolved into the gray morning. Behind him, David Kang's polite smile had already vanished, replaced by the bored expression of a man who delivered his package and had more important places to be. "Remember," David called through the window, "my uncle expects results. 3 days. Bring us something impressive, or we'll collect it ourselves." The SUV pulled away, tires crunching through ice, leaving twin tracks that filled with fresh snow within minutes. Junho stood alone in the courtyard. His neighbors watched from cracked windows, faces pale and hollow. They'd seen the Kang soldiers. They'd seen him return. Now they waited, some with hope, others with the dull certainty that their brief moment of safety was already ending. He didn't go inside immediately. Instead, he turned his gaze to the corner of the building where Daniel Park usually lurked, smoking through the apocalypse like it was just another bad day. But Daniel wasn't there. Strange. The man was always there, watching everything with those sharp, calculating eyes. Junho's instincts, honed by 30 years of a previous life filled with betrayal, prickled at the base of his skull. Inside, Mr. Han was waiting in the stairwell. The middle-aged man's knuckles were still bruised from the fight with the gang, but his eyes burned with something new: purpose. "How did it go?" he asked quietly. Junho pulled off his gloves. "They want tribute. Food, supplies, gold, anything I can produce, in 3 days. And if we refuse, they'll take it by force, and this time it won't be thugs with baseball bats." Junho glanced up the stairs toward his apartment. "Where's Daniel?" Mr. Han's expression darkened. "Haven't seen him since you left. Chris went looking for him an hour ago. Said his door was open, but the room was empty." The prickling sensation grew stronger. In his past life, Junho had learned one fundamental truth. People always acted in patterns. Daniel Park had spent days lounging around, smoking, making snide comments, but he'd never disappeared without a word. Men like Daniel didn't vanish unless they were running from something. Or toward something. "Tell Emily to keep watch on the main entrance," Junho said. "If anyone suspicious shows up, Kang soldiers, gangs, anyone, I want to know immediately." Mr. Han nodded and hurried off. Junho climbed the stairs slowly, mind racing. He'd been so focused on the Kang family that he'd made a critical error. He'd underestimated the people closest to him. Daniel was dangerous. That much had been obvious from the start. But Junho had assumed he understood the man's motivations. Now he wasn't so sure. His apartment was exactly as he'd left it. The copper basin sat in the corner, innocent and unassuming. Stacks of supplies lined the walls: food, water, blankets, all duplicated endlessly from single items. The heater hummed softly, keeping the room warm while the world outside froze to death. Junho sat on the floor and opened his notebook. 3 pages were filled with neat handwriting, plans, predictions, contingencies. He flipped to a blank page and wrote a single name at the top: Daniel Park. Then he began listing everything he knew about the man. In his previous life, Daniel had ruled this block through fear and violence. He'd built a gang, extorted food from the weak, and killed anyone who resisted. By the time the Kang family arrived, Daniel had already established himself as a local warlord, powerful enough that the Kang group had absorbed him rather than fighting him. But that was the old timeline. In this timeline, Daniel hadn't been able to build his gang. Junho had seized control too quickly, distributed food too efficiently, turned the neighbors into allies rather than victims. Daniel had been neutralized before he could even start. So why had he stayed? Why had he fought alongside them against the gang? Junho tapped his pen against the paper. Daniel Park wasn't the type to follow someone out of gratitude or loyalty. He followed power, he followed opportunity, which meant a cold realization settled over him. Daniel had been watching, waiting, learning everything about Junho's operation, his supplies, his allies, his weaknesses. And now that the Kang family was involved, Daniel had finally seen his chance. The question was, what would he do with it? Night fell early, the way it always did during the storm. Junho gathered his small council in his apartment. Mr. Han, Chris, and Emily. They sat on the floor around the heater, faces illuminated by its orange glow. Daniel's gone, Junho said without preamble. And I don't think he's coming back. Emily frowned. You think he abandoned us? I think he's making a move. Junho met each of their eyes in turn. We need to prepare for the possibility that he's gone to the Kang family. If he tells them everything, about the supplies, the basin, how we fought off the gang, they'll come for us with everything they have. Chris, the high school boy, gripped his knife tighter. Then we fight them like we fought the others. No. Junho's voice was firm. The Kang group isn't a gang of thugs. They have trained soldiers, real weapons, and unlimited resources. If they decide we're a threat, they'll erase us. Silence settled over the group, heavy as the snow outside. Mr. Han spoke carefully. Then what do we do? Junho stood and walked to the window. The courtyard below was empty, blanketed in white. Beyond it, the city stretched out in darkness, thousands of people freezing, starving, dying in the cold. And somewhere out there, Daniel Park was making his choice. We prepare, Junho said, but not for war, for leverage. The next morning, a commotion erupted in the courtyard. Junho was awake before the shouting started. Old instincts from his previous life meant he rarely slept deeply anymore. He grabbed his coat and rushed downstairs. A crowd had gathered near the gate. In the center, surrounded by frightened neighbors, stood 3 figures. 2 were Kang soldiers, black coats, rifles slung over their shoulders, the kind of casual arrogance that came from knowing you were untouchable. The third was Daniel Park. He looked different. His usual slouch was gone, replaced by a rigid military posture. The scar on his face seemed deeper in the morning light, a canyon of old violence, and his eyes, those sharp, calculating eyes, were completely empty. Daniel, Mr. Han pushed through the crowd. Where the hell have you been? Daniel didn't answer. His gaze was fixed on Junho, who stood at the edge of the crowd with his arms crossed. One of the Kang soldiers stepped forward. He was young, maybe early 20s, with a face that still held traces of baby fat despite the apocalypse. But his eyes were cold and professional. Lee Junho, the soldier, called out, Chairman Kang has requested an update on your production capabilities. We're here to escort you back to headquarters. I have 2 more days, Junho replied calmly. That was the agreement. The soldier's smile was razor-thin. Plans change. The chairman is an impatient man. Then the chairman can wait. The temperature in the courtyard seemed to drop another 10 degrees. Neighbors backed away, sensing violence in the air. The second Kang soldier shifted his rifle to a more accessible position. But Daniel just stared at Junho with those empty eyes. Then he spoke, and his voice was different. Flatter. Harder. You should go with them, Junho. The chairman doesn't make requests twice. Mr. Han spun toward him. What the hell is wrong with you? Daniel finally looked away from Junho. When he met Mr. Han's eyes, something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe, or regret. But it vanished in an instant. I'm doing what I should have done from the beginning, Daniel said, choosing the winning side. The words hit like a physical blow. Emily gasped. Chris's hand went to his knife. Even the neighbors who'd never trusted Daniel looked shocked by the naked betrayal. But Junho didn't react. He'd been expecting this. Maybe not exactly this, but something like it. Daniel Park was a survivor above all else, and survivors didn't bet on lost causes. So that's it, Mr. Han's voice shook with rage. We fought together. We bled together. And you're just going to hand him over to those bastards. Daniel's jaw tightened. For just a moment, the mask cracked, and something raw showed through. Something that looked almost like pain. I'm not handing anyone over, he said quietly. I'm giving him a choice. Go peacefully, or they'll come back with an army and take everyone. The young Kang soldier laughed. Listen to him. Daniel knows how this works. He used to be one of us, after all. The courtyard went silent. Junho felt the pieces clicking into place in his mind. Daniel's military bearing, his combat skills, the way he'd known exactly how to fight the gang. It all made sense now. "You were Kang's security," Junho said. It wasn't a question. Daniel's expression hardened. "I was a lot of things." "And then you ran," Junho continued, piecing it together. "Something happened. You betrayed them, or they betrayed you. Either way, you've been hiding ever since." The young soldier's smile widened. "Not just hiding, running. Daniel Park killed 3 of our men 2 years ago during a disagreement about compensation. The chairman put a price on his head. We've been looking for him ever since." Daniel's hand twitched toward his waist, old muscle memory reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. "But then the storm came," the soldier continued, clearly enjoying himself. "And suddenly, everyone had bigger problems. We stopped looking for deserters, stopped caring about old grudges." He turned his cold gaze on Daniel. "Until yesterday, when this piece of shit walked right into our headquarters and offered to make a deal." Emily's voice was barely a whisper. "What deal?" Daniel closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he was looking directly at Junho. "Information about your operation," he said flatly. "In exchange for amnesty, a clean slate." The betrayal was complete, laid bare in the snow for everyone to see. Mr. Han lunged forward, but Chris grabbed him. "Don't. He sold us out," Mr. Han roared. "He's going to get us all killed." "No," Daniel said, and for the first time, real emotion entered his voice. "That's the point. If Junho cooperates, nobody has to die. The Kang family gets their supplies, we all stay under their protection, and everyone survives." "As slaves," Emily said bitterly. Daniel didn't deny it. Junho finally moved. He walked forward slowly, boots crunching through snow, until he stood face to face with Daniel Park. The two men stared at each other, one calm and calculating, the other tense and hollow. "You made your choice," Junho said quietly. "I can respect that." Daniel blinked, clearly not expecting that response. "But you made the wrong choice," Junho continued, "because you're still thinking like a soldier, like someone who follows orders and picks the strongest master. You don't understand what I am yet." The young Kang soldier laughed. "And what are you? Some kind of—" He didn't finish the sentence, because that's when the first explosion rocked the street 3 blocks away. The blast wave rolled through the courtyard like thunder. Snow lifted from the ground in swirling clouds. Car alarms wailed in the distance. Neighbors screamed and ducked for cover. Junho didn't flinch. He'd been counting the seconds since the Kang soldiers arrived. Right on time. The young soldier grabbed his radio. "Command, what the hell was that? Command, respond." Static. Nothing but static. The second explosion came from the opposite direction, closer this time, close enough that they could see the flash of light, the pillar of smoke rising into the gray sky. The Kang soldiers' professional composure cracked. They looked at each other, uncertain for the first time. Daniel grabbed the young soldier's arm. "What's happening?" We didn't." The soldier's eyes widened. "Oh shit, it's the militia." "What militia?" Daniel demanded. But Junho already knew, because in his previous life, this was when they'd arrived, the survivor militia, a ragtag army of refugees and deserters who'd banded together to fight back against the Kang family's control. They'd been crushed within a week, overwhelmed by superior firepower and organization. But in this timeline, Junho had changed things. He'd created a focal point of resistance, a symbol that someone could stand up to the Kang group and survive. And apparently, that had inspired others. A third explosion, then a fourth. Gunfire rattled through the streets like firecrackers. The young soldier's radio crackled to life. "Under attack, multiple positions, need reinforcements at..." The transmission cut off. Mr. Han appeared at Junho's side, bat in hand. "What do we do?" Junho looked at Daniel. The ex-soldier's face had gone pale, his eyes distant, seeing something the others couldn't. The look of a man watching his past and future collide. "You wanted to choose the winning side," Junho said. "So choose. Right now." Daniel's hand trembled. The empty look was gone, replaced by something raw and conflicted. He turned to the Kang soldiers, then back to Junho. "If I stay," Daniel said slowly, "they'll never stop hunting me. You know that, right? The Kang family doesn't forgive deserters." "I know," Junho replied, "but I also know that in 3 days, the Kang group is going to collapse." Everyone stared at him. "That's impossible," the young soldier spat. "We control half the city." You control half of a frozen graveyard, Junho interrupted. Your supply lines are stretched too thin, your soldiers are exhausted, and now you have an enemy that knows all your positions, all your routines, because half your men used to be ordinary people just like them. He smiled faintly. The militia isn't trying to win, they're trying to bleed you, and they will. The soldier raised his rifle. You're full of shit. Daniel's fist caught him in the throat. The soldier went down hard, gagging and clutching his neck. His partner reached for his weapon, but Daniel was already moving. 2 quick strikes, brutal and efficient, and the second soldier crumpled into the snow. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Daniel straightened, breathing hard, and looked at his hands like he didn't recognize them. "God damn it," he whispered. "God damn it." Junho stepped closer. "Why did you really come back?" Daniel's laugh was bitter. "You want the truth? I went to the Kang headquarters ready to sell you out. I told them everything. The basin, the food, all of it. And you know what they did? They laughed, said they already knew, said they'd been watching you for days." He met Junho's eyes. "But then, the chairman told me something. He said I could have my amnesty after I brought him your head." The courtyard went silent again. "They were never going to let you live," Daniel continued. "The deal was fake. They were just using me to get close, to make you lower your guard, and I—" His voice cracked. "I almost went through with it, almost put a knife in your back and walked away clean." "Why didn't you?" Emily asked softly. Daniel looked at her, at Mr. Han, at Chris, at all the faces watching him with a mixture of fear and confusion. "Because you idiots don't deserve to die for my sins," he said finally. "I've done a lot of terrible things, killed people who didn't deserve it, hurt people who were just trying to survive. I thought I'd made peace with that, thought I was just built different." He laughed bitterly. "But watching you fight for each other, watching you build something here, it reminded me that I used to be someone else. Before the Kang group, before everything went to shit." He turned back to Junho. "So yeah, I choose this side, even if it gets me killed." Junho studied him for a long moment. In his previous life, he'd learned to read people, to see through lies and manipulations. Daniel Park was still dangerous, still broken, still carrying ghosts that would probably haunt him forever. But right now, in this moment, he was telling the truth. "Then welcome back," Junho said. "Now help me tie up these soldiers before they wake up." By noon, the battle for Busan was in full swing. Smoke rose from a dozen locations across the city. Gunfire echoed like distant thunder. The Kang group's black SUVs raced through streets, trying to coordinate defenses, but the militia was everywhere and nowhere, striking hard, then vanishing into the ruins. Inside Junho's building, the mood was tense but energized. The neighbors had barricaded the entrances. Mr. Han and his volunteers stood watch. Emily had set up a makeshift medical station, and Daniel Park stood at the window, watching the smoke rise, looking more alive than he had in days. "They'll send a kill squad," he said quietly. "Once they realize I killed those soldiers, they'll send professionals." "I know," Junho replied. He was sitting on the floor, the copper basin beside him, pulling out weapons one by one, knives, bats, a few more of the realistic air pistols. "How long do we have?" "Hours, maybe less." Daniel glanced at him. "You really think the Kang group will fall in 3 days?" "I know they will, because I've seen it happen before." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Junho almost told him then, about the regression, about living through this nightmare once before, about knowing exactly how everything would unfold, but some secrets were too dangerous to share. "I mean, I pay attention," Junho said instead. "The Kang group is powerful, but power built on fear collapses fast once people stop being afraid. And right now, people are learning they can fight back." "And us?" Daniel asked. "What happens to us when the dust settles?" Junho met his eyes. "That depends on you. Are you really with us, Daniel? Or are you just betting on a new master?" The question hung in the air between them. Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a crumpled pack of cigarettes, his last one. He lit it, took a long drag, and let the smoke drift toward the window. "I told you I used to be someone else," he said. "Want to know who? If you want to tell me. I was a cop before everything. Not a good one. Took bribes, looked the other way, all the standard corruption. But I wasn't a monster. Not yet." He tapped ash onto the floor. When the cold wave hit, the department collapsed in 3 days. Everyone ran. I tried to help people at first, but then the Kang group showed up. They were hiring anyone with military or police experience. Good pay, food, protection. So I signed up. He paused, something dark crossing his face. They had us doing things, clearing out blocks, securing supplies, eliminating resistance. I told myself it was necessary, that we were maintaining order, but really, we were just killing anyone who wouldn't submit. He looked at his scarred hands. I did that for 6 months, became one of their best enforcers, until the day they ordered me to execute a family hiding food, parents and 2 kids. The room was completely silent now. I shot my squad leader instead, Daniel said flatly. Killed 2 others who tried to stop me. Let the family escape. Then I ran and never looked back. He smiled without humor. So no, Junho, I'm not betting on a new master. I'm betting that maybe, just maybe, I can die as someone slightly less worthless than the piece of shit I've become. Junho absorbed this, another piece of the puzzle clicking into place. The family you saved, he said slowly. Where did they go? Daniel shrugged. No idea. Told them to run and never gave them a second thought. Describe them. What? Why does it? Describe them, Junho repeated more firmly this time. Daniel frowned, clearly confused, but complied. Middle-aged guy, kind of stocky, woman, maybe his wife, 2 kids, teenage boy and a girl, maybe 8 or 9. Why? Junho stood and walked to the window. He looked down at the courtyard, where Mr. Han was coordinating the defenses with Chris by his side. Mr. Han has a daughter, Junho said quietly. She died in his arms during the first week of the storm. That's why he fights so hard now. He has nothing left to lose. Daniel's face went white. But Chris isn't his son, Junho continued. Chris is a neighborhood kid who attached himself to our group because he had nowhere else to go. His parents died early. He turned to face Daniel. Unless I'm wrong about the timeline, unless Mr. Han's daughter is still alive somewhere, and unless Chris's parents survived because someone saved them 2 years ago. Daniel's cigarette fell from his fingers. You're saying, I'm saying maybe you already made your choice a long time ago, Junho said. You just didn't realize it until now. Before Daniel could respond, footsteps thundered up the stairs. Emily burst through the door, face pale. They're here, Kang soldiers, at least 20 of them, full combat gear, surrounding the building. Daniel's hand went to his waist, still reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Kill squad, he said, right on schedule. Mr. Han appeared behind Emily, bat gripped in white knuckles. What do we do? Everyone looked at Junho, and Junho smiled, the cold, calculating smile of a man who'd played this game before and knew exactly how it ended. We give them what they want, he said. We give them Daniel Park. Daniel's eyes widened, but not the way they expect. The Kang soldiers moved with the precision of men who'd done this 100 times before. They spread out around the building in a textbook encirclement pattern, covering exits, high windows, even the sewer grates. 20 men in full tactical gear, rifles with actual scopes, radios crackling with coordinated chatter. From his window, Junho watched them deploy. In his previous life, he'd seen formations like this tear through resistance groups in minutes. The Kang group didn't send kill squads for intimidation. They sent them for erasure. They're not messing around, Daniel muttered beside him. His face was pale, but his hands were steady. That's Captain Marcus Song leading them. He trained me. He's the one who taught me how to clear buildings floor by floor. Good, Junho said. Then you know how he thinks. Daniel shot him a look. You're serious about this? About using me as bait? Unless you have a better idea for drawing 20 trained killers into a trap. I have several better ideas. Most of them involve running very far away. Junho turned from the window. The room was crowded now. Mr. Han, Emily, Chris, and a dozen other neighbors who'd proven themselves capable during the gang fight. They all watched him with expressions ranging from determination to barely controlled terror. Listen carefully, Junho said. We have maybe 10 minutes before they decide to just blow the building and sort through the rubble. So here's what's going to happen. He unrolled a hand-drawn map of the surrounding blocks across the floor. It was crude but detailed. Every alley, every corner, every potential line of fire marked in careful pencil strokes. Daniel walks out the front gate, Junho continued, tapping the map. Hands bound, visibly beaten, escorted by Mr. Han and 2 others. he surrenders to the kill squad. And then they shoot him in the head, Emily said flatly. Not immediately, Daniel replied, studying the map. Marcus is a professional. He'll want confirmation that I'm alone, that this isn't a trick. He'll secure me first, call it in to command, then execute me on camera as an example. He glanced at Junho. That gives us maybe 5 minutes once I'm in their hands. More than enough, Junho said. He traced a line on the map, the route the kill squad would naturally take to extract their prisoner. A narrow alley between their building and the burned-out convenience store, the only path wide enough for their vehicles but tight enough to feel secure. They'll take you through here, Junho said. It's the logical extraction point. Clear sight lines to cover the approach, only one entrance, easy to defend. Which makes it perfect for an ambush, Mr. Han said slowly, understanding dawning on his face. Junho nodded. We turn their strength into a coffin. He started assigning positions, his voice calm and methodical. Chris and 3 others would take the roof of the convenience store. Air pistols weren't lethal, but at close range they could blind, disorient, buy crucial seconds. Emily and her medical team would be stationed with Molotov cocktails at the alley's far end, ready to cut off retreat. Mr. Han would go with Daniel, playing the role of captor until the moment came to switch. What about the explosions? Daniel asked. You said something about traps? Junho walked to the copper basin. He reached in and pulled out a small propane camping canister, the kind used for portable stoves. Then he reached in again, and again, and again. Within 2 minutes, 30 identical canisters lined the floor. Daniel stared. Jesus Christ, how many times did you duplicate those? Enough. Junho began distributing them to volunteers. Place these along the alley walls, behind cover, anywhere you can hide them. When I give the signal, we puncture them all at once and light them. The gas will ignite in a chain reaction. That's not an ambush, one of the neighbors whispered. That's a death trap. Yes, Junho said simply. It is. Silence fell over the room. These weren't soldiers. They were ordinary people. Office workers, students, parents who'd never hurt anyone before the world ended. Now he was asking them to participate in premeditated mass murder. Mr. Han spoke first. The Kang group killed my daughter, took her food, left her to freeze, and didn't even remember her name when I begged them for help. His voice was steady, but his eyes burned. I'll light the first fire myself. One by one, the others nodded. Not eager, not bloodthirsty, just tired of being prey. There's one more thing, Junho said. He looked at Daniel. This only works if they believe you betrayed us. Really believe it. Which means you have to beat the shit out of me, Daniel finished. He smiled without humor. Yeah, I figured. 5 minutes later, Daniel Park stumbled into the courtyard with blood running down his face. His hands were bound behind his back with zip ties, real ones, tight enough to cut circulation. His left eye was swelling shut. His lip was split. Fresh bruises bloomed across his cheeks and jaw. Mr. Han shoved him forward roughly, and Daniel fell to his knees in the snow. 2 other neighbors flanked them, one carrying a bat, the other a length of pipe. The performance had to be convincing. It was. Captain Song, Mr. Han called out, voice cracking with manufactured fear. Captain Song, we have him. We have the traitor. Movement in the shadows. The kill squad's encirclement tightened, rifles tracking every window, every possible ambush point. Then a man stepped forward into the courtyard's dim light. Captain Marcus Song was tall and broad-shouldered, with gray threading through his short black hair. His tactical vest was pristine despite the apocalypse, and his rifle hung from a 3-point sling with the ease of long familiarity. But it was his eyes that marked him as dangerous, cold, analytical, missing nothing. Those eyes found Daniel and narrowed. Well, Marcus said. His voice was deep and measured. Daniel Park, I heard you were dead. Daniel lifted his head, blood dripping from his chin. Not yet, but soon. Marcus gestured, and 2 of his men moved forward cautiously, weapons trained on the beaten man. You killed 3 of my soldiers 2 years ago, then you vanished like a coward. I've been looking forward to this conversation. I'm sure, Daniel replied. He glanced at Mr. Han, then back to Marcus. These people are offering me to you, a trade, my life for theirs. Marcus smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. And why would I trade anything? I can take you and kill them. Because there's someone else you want more, Mr. Han said quickly. His fear wasn't entirely feigned. Facing down 20 soldiers took courage even when you knew the plan. The man with the supplies, Lee Jun-ho. Daniel knows where he keeps everything, the basin, the gold, all of it. That got Marcus's attention. His radio crackled, someone asking for orders, but he ignored it, focused entirely on the prize in front of him. Is that true? Marcus asked Daniel. You know where the magic box is? Daniel's laugh was bitter. Magic box, is that what you're calling it? Yeah, I know where it is. I know everything about Junho's operation. He spat blood into the snow. But I'm not telling you shit until you guarantee these people's safety. No. The word was flat and final. Marcus raised his rifle slightly, not quite pointing it, but the threat was clear. Here's how this works. You tell me what I want to know. If the information is good, I kill you quickly. If it's not. He let the sentence hang. As for these people, they're harboring insurgents. That makes them enemy combatants. Mr. Han's grip tightened on his bat. Around the courtyard, hidden faces watched from windows, waiting for the signal. Not yet, Junho thought from his position on the third floor. Not yet. You're going to kill us anyway, Mr. Han said, voice shaking. So why should we cooperate? Because there are easy deaths and hard deaths, Marcus replied. He looked back at Daniel. You remember, don't you? You used to help me demonstrate the difference. Something flickered across Daniel's face, a shadow of the man he used to be, the enforcer who'd done terrible things under this same commander. For a moment, Junho wondered if the act would break, if old loyalty would resurface. Then Daniel lifted his head and smiled through broken teeth. I remember, he said. I also remember you left me to die in Gwangju when that raid went sideways. So yeah, Marcus, let's talk about loyalty. Marcus's expression hardened. Secure him. We're moving to extraction point Beta. The alley. Just as predicted. 2 soldiers grabbed Daniel under the arms and hauled him upright. Another patted him down roughly, checking for weapons. Marcus gestured for his squad to form up, a tight escort formation, professional and efficient. What about us? Mr. Han called out as they started to move. Marcus didn't even look back. Lock them in the building. We'll deal with them after interrogation. 4 soldiers split off, moving toward the apartment entrance with weapons raised. The neighbors inside would have to hold them off long enough for the ambush to spring, another calculated risk. Junho watched the main group escort Daniel toward the alley, 15 soldiers moving in practiced coordination. Marcus in the center, completely confident. Perfect. The alley was exactly as narrow as it looked on the map. Maybe 10 feet wide, with crumbling brick walls on either side rising 3 stories high. Snow had drifted against the walls, hiding the propane canisters that volunteers had placed during the night. Marcus's squad moved through in tactical formation, weapons covering every angle. They'd done this so many times it was muscle memory. Clear the entry, secure the flanks, move the prisoner to the center. Daniel stumbled forward between his guards, acting dazed and beaten, but his eyes were sharp, tracking positions, counting steps, almost there. Command, this is Song, Marcus spoke into his radio. We have the traitor, moving to secondary extraction, ETA 5 minutes. Static, then a voice. Copy that, Captain. Chairman Kang sends his regards to Mr. Park. Daniel's jaw clenched. Even after everything, hearing the chairman's name still touched a nerve. They were halfway through the alley when Marcus raised a fist, the signal to halt. The squad froze instantly. For a long moment, Marcus stood completely still, head tilted slightly, listening. Sir? One of the soldiers asked quietly. Something's wrong, Marcus said. His eyes swept the alley, the windows above, the snowdrifts. This is too easy. Junho's heart hammered. From his position on the convenience store roof, he could see Marcus's suspicion crystallizing into certainty. The trap was perfect, but Marcus hadn't survived this long by ignoring his instincts. If they didn't spring it now, the moment would pass. Junho lifted the red cloth in his hand, the signal, and hesitated, because in that split second, he saw what happened next with perfect clarity. The explosions would kill most of the squad instantly. Some would burn, others would be caught in the crossfire. Men with families, maybe. Men who'd made choices in an impossible world, just like everyone else. In his previous life, he died believing that killing was always wrong, that there had to be another way. That belief had gotten him and everyone he loved killed. Junho dropped the cloth. The world erupted. Chris, positioned on the roof across from Junho, fired his air pistol at the nearest propane canister. The pellet punched through the thin metal with a hiss. And Emily, at the far end of the alley, threw her Molotov cocktail with perfect timing. The gas ignited in a roaring cascade. Fire raced along the alley walls like a living thing, following the trail of leaking propane. Canisters exploded in rapid succession, boom, 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 each one feeding the next in a chain reaction that turned the narrow space into a blast furnace. Soldiers screamed. Some dove for cover. Others fired blindly at windows, at shadows, at nothing. Marcus threw himself behind a dumpster, his tactical training overriding panic. Ambush! Fall back! Fall back! But there was nowhere to fall back to. The alley entrance erupted in flames as more Molotovs crashed down from above. The exit was already blocked by a wall of fire. They were trapped in a kill box with flames on both sides and shooters in every window. Suppressing fire, Marcus roared, taking command even as his men burned. Windows. Target the windows. Rifles cracked, muzzle flashes bright against the smoke, glass shattered. One of the neighbors on the second floor went down screaming, clutching his shoulder. But the ambush had done its job.